Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop. Only one place to start today's show, and that, of course, is the news. Although that is a sacking we'll be talking about later. Ruben Amorim sacked as manager of Manchester United, just reflecting on what I think it's fair to say was a very disappointing tenure. Of course, he joined the club in November 2024. It took him 2 months to come out and say this is the worst team in club history. He then made it through, of course, the Europa League final, where he lost disappointingly against Spurs. They finished 15th in his first season. That's their worst finish since 1975. And then on Sunday, of course, after a slightly improved season, he came out and said that he was a manager, not a head coach, calling out the board, and then it just took the board less than 24 hours to announce his sacking. For more on this, Mario Malkiot joins us, but Oggy, I want to start with you. You take a look at this. Was the press conference yesterday the final nail in the coffin, or was he already dead and buried?
Well, I was at the press conference. I was at Leeds on Sunday, and I felt leaving the ground that was it. I thought he was done, and I expected to be gone by the end of the week. I didn't think it'd be done today, but I'm not surprised he's gone. But I thought that was a final nail. But I've been told today by people at United that actually the die was cast before that it was this blowout with Jason Wilcox, the director of football, on Friday that kind of sealed his fate. But it was more a case of just basically the results, the performances, the inflexibility of his tactics, it was said to me, his immature reaction at times to requests or suggestions that he might change his formation. Now, I was told that when he got the job, in the interview he said, I will start with three at the back, but I will evolve and we will evolve, and then we will kind of play a different way. And 12, 13 months on, he hadn't even suggested any change from his three at the back. So United felt that they were kind of giving this under false pretenses. But I mean, that's one side of the story. I think ultimately he's been a disastrous appointment. The results have been terrible. The tactics have been terrible. The performances have been worse. And I think what happened at Leeds on Sunday was the final nail, because you cannot come out and criticise your bosses publicly. You just can't do that. And I think he knew what he was doing as well. I think he knew that would lead to the end, as it did for Nuno at Forest, as it did to Maresca at Chelsea. This is the new way that coaches go, isn't it? They slag off the owners or the bosses, and they know that they're going to get sacked.
He wanted out, didn't he?
Well, that's what we said on yesterday's show.
Well, he'd wanted out for quite some time.
Yep.
Because he knew he was out his depth. He also knew that it was a club that's not been run properly, a club that haven't recruited properly. So he knew it wasn't all his fault, but he knew he could not stop the sort of poor performances and the decline. And yeah, they are in a much more reasonable position than they were obviously 12 months ago, and some would say, well, that's progress. But if you looked at the performances, and if you look at how bad the rest are, and if you look at how tight it is, that can change very quickly. He was just at the wrong movie. He was out his depth. And I go back to the game at Fulham last season. Even when you come up against players that you're finding difficult, you can't go to press conferences and talk about playing bus drivers in front of star players. Mm-hmm. Even if you're having an issue with those players, because that kind of rhetoric filters around the dressing room, and you lose the dressing room, players will lose trust in you. And it just showed me a manager who was incapable of dealing with the issues that were going to be thrown up by this club. So I'm not surprised. I mean, where United go is a different story. I don't even think they know, and I think that's part of the bigger issue. But in terms of Ruben Amorim as an individual managing this club, just too big for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. Craig mentions the bus driver reference. That was, of course, talking about Marcus Rashford. It seems like all the moves that he made to make a statement, to say I'm the boss, sticking to three at the back, obviously isolating the likes of Anthony, Mainu, the latest one, nothing worked.
No, it didn't, and now it's reflective in certainly last season's league position. Things have kind of turned for the better this time around. While the football hasn't been great and they've been disappointing results, there's still about 3 points off the top four. But still, kind of give Amorim and what you've seen from Manchester United, it hasn't been good enough. Even if the league position might kind of suggest that they're on the up. Everything just happened so quickly, and there are so many parallels between this and the Maresca firing. It just speaks to, in defense of Amorim, if there is such a thing, of higher ups within the football club, whether it's the ownership or the director of football or whoever else it is they have in the corner suites, wanting to have a direct impact on what's happening on the park, and managers kind of pushing back against that. Now they may feel that they need to have that kind of that input because of results haven't been good or whatever it may be. But from the time you have that blurring of lines, regardless of where you are on the league table, that's going to end in disaster, and in the last two cases, and in the manager getting the sack.
Not only did they finish 15th last year, which is a horrendous, between themselves and Tottenham, they were not that far above the relegation zone. Let's not forget, Manchester United went out of the EFL Cup to Grimsby Town this year. I mean, that's potentially a sacking offence on its own. And it wasn't a weak it wasn't, I say, a weak Manchester United side. They are a weak side.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Man United side with wholesale changes. A lot of their more experienced players played in this game. So at the end of the day, he's known the writing's been on the wall at this club, and he was successful in Portugal. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares in England? They don't care what they do in Portugal.
Mario, your reaction?
No, you know what I feel sad? I just like when he started already, one of the key things I think, we all know, playing at Man United, they have a system how they play. When he started his system, he was already 1-0 behind because people were not used to it. So then the stubborn period came on, you understand, for him not to want it to change, but not knowing like, okay, when you're a young manager, I understand that, but you also have to look at the ones that did it prior to you and showed you that you have to adapt to the situation. He never wanted to change and he carried on. Okay, you go to the final, he loses the final, and then he takes the mic and he gives a speech to the stadium, kind of saying like, yeah, we are really bad, and I know we are bad, we're not doing well. You don't do that. You don't really do that at the end of the season. It's Man United. Do that at a lower team, but don't do that at Manchester United. Then you carry on in the season, people start asking you, and then he adapts to his system, and he says like, yeah, I'm doing it now, and he's giving in a little bit, and then still saying like, oh no, I'm gonna go back to the 3 at the back. So what the key thing for, instead of they wanted stability, and he made it unstable, the club, and I think that is where the question was asked at him.
It's interesting, Mark, that Stevie brought up yesterday, talking about Maresca and obviously Amorim as well. It's saying that he doesn't blame these managers coming out and in the end having a go at the board, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are getting all the blame when things go wrong all the time. So you understand them coming out and trying to put a different argument across.
Yeah, a little bit, but other clubs operate the same system, and you don't hear Arne Slot complaining at Liverpool. People complain about him in terms of Mo Salah, but what I'm saying is it's just that the clubs that are struggling, and I think the managers then want to blame somebody else. And English football is kind of just about getting used to sporting directors, and I think this week the whole Maresca thing and the Man United situation has kind of shone a light on how powerful sporting directors are now, and how much less of a role or a say that coaches have. But I still think if you look at the top 3 in the Premier League, Mikel Arteta, Unai Emery, and who's the other one, Pep Guardiola, they're probably the most in control managers in the country. So it shows that if you have a manager who is allowed to do his job and do the traditional job, then they will be successful. So I can understand Amorim's frustration that he wanted more of a say, but he has been given plenty of rope in terms of what he's had at United. He's had, they brought in plenty of players for him. They've transformed his attacking formation this summer. But he was wedded to this system, and his downfall was not caused by Jason Wilcox or Omar Barada or Jim Radcliffe or Dave Brailsford. It was caused by himself, by not being flexible enough to realise that his system wasn't working. Now, Craig's right, he said he's successful in Portugal, but so what? His system worked in Portugal. Well, let's be honest, Sporting Lisbon had 2 hard games a season against Benfica and Porto. That system he's got is not stress tested against teams that will make it make it pay, make it suffer. It's come to the Premier League, and straight away the system has been exposed, and he's not changed it. He's had the opportunity to change it. He's played that system with a squad of players that isn't suited to the system. So that's all on him. And ultimately, when the likes of Jason Wilcox are going to Amorim saying, look, why aren't you being more flexible? Why can't you evolve this system? You can't really blame Man United for doing that, because it wasn't working. So in many ways, they're basically saying, look, Ruben, change this system, because if you don't, we're going to keep losing games and you're going to lose your job. So they have a responsibility to do that. And managers that don't like it, head coaches that don't like it, is the head coach, not the manager, isn't it? Head coaches that don't like it, they will blame the sporting director. But he picks the team, he picks the tactics. So at the end of the day, he's the guy that's to blame for losing his job, not anybody else.
Do the supporters, Augie, think that Ineos are as clueless as the Glazers? Because at the moment, there's not a lot of evidence to suggest otherwise, is there?
Yeah, listen, the supporters at Man United are I think the majority are glad that Amorim's gone. I think a lot have lost patience, but that it's more than a majority. I think you talk about 95% are anti the Glazers and think that Ineos has done a terrible job, because it's been 2 years now. I think it's pretty much 2 years in February since they took over, and there's been, I can't think of anything they've done that's actually been successful. They've got rid of loads of people at the club. They've cut costs. Man United is unrecognisable from the club it used to be, and that's partly because of what's happened under Ineos. They've stripped it bare. Yeah, I'll give them credit for the signings they made in the summer, because I think Mbuma's done well. I think Cunha's done well. They've made better signings than they have been making in the last few years, but they still haven't made great signings. So yes, there's a general sense of fear at United amongst the supporters that this club isn't going anywhere. The club is just heading for the iceberg because there's nobody at the club that's got the experience to make the big decisions. And obviously the next big decision is who comes in to replace Amorim, and when does that happen? Does it happen immediately, or do they limp on until the summer with an interim coach because there were better coaches available in the summer? Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino, Carlo Ancelotti, all out of contract after the World Cup. Do you wait for one of those guys, or do you say to Darren Fletcher, you're the guy taking us into the Champions League this season, or do you bring in do you try and get Oliver Glasner? It's a difficult balancing act that United have got right now. But the problem is, do you trust people at Ineos to make that decision? And I don't think the fans do, and I'm not sure they have. They should do, really.
It's interesting, Oggy, you mentioned those big names, obviously, who are tied to international teams at the moment: Ancelotti, Tuchel, Pochettino. Does anyone actually want this job?
Well, yes, because at the end of the World Cup dance, certainly Tuchel and Pochettino, I guess, will be out of work because I think their contracts end in the summer. I think Ancelotti's ends, but he's got an option. If they're out of work in the summer, and they'll both want to get back to the Premier League, because the Premier League is the best league in the world in terms of eyeballs, in terms of excitement, in terms of money. Now, let's be honest, they both manage Chelsea. They're not going back to Chelsea. They're not going to go to Arsenal. They're not going to go to Liverpool. The Man City will have different ideas. So Man United will probably still be the best job available in the summer to a top manager. The question is, will a top manager like a Tuchel or Pochettino want to work in that system that Ineos have created? They'll want more say than Amorim had. Yeah. And I think United have to swallow it a bit and say, something, Man United need a big coach that is able to have the personality, the presence to lead the club forward. And it means that the likes of Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox have to take a step back and letting the guy get on with the job that he knows that he's doing, rather than have a novice who doesn't know what he's doing, who can't handle the pressure, who can't handle ex-players and former players, legends saying that you're doing it wrong. They need a big personality that can deal with all that. And for me, that's a Tuchel or a Pochettino or an Ancelotti, but I don't think Ancelotti's a viable option. So they're the obvious candidates. And yes, I do think they'd take the job because it's Man United, and big coaches, as the guys now, have big egos. And at some point, one of these big coaches with a big ego is going to turn Man United around and be the next Alex Ferguson. So everyone thinks it's going to be them. But so far, it hasn't been any of them.
Who would you have, Craig?
I'll tell you what.
Clean slate. Who would you have?
Well, I'd have people that wouldn't take the job.
Right.
Because they've managed other clubs, like Jurgen Klopp and others. I mean, I think Ancelotti's a little bit long in the tooth for it now, if I'm being honest. I think international football suits him. I don't think I could listen to Thomas Tuchel every week. It'd be good for us.
Yes.
I mean, he would be banging on every 2 days. I mean, he was banging on relentlessly at Bayern Munich about a number 6. Yes. And they had a good side. All right, he wanted Paulinho, he didn't get him. Paulinho, who's not getting a game for Tottenham these days. But he banged on about, I can't do this, and I can't. And Vincent Kompany goes in, been sacked from Burnley, and he's been getting on with it. And Tuchel just banged on about this Bayern Munich squad. I mean, if he's doing that about the Bayern Munich squad, what's he going to do with this? So, I mean, I don't know. I think when one or two of these managers look at it with a more peripheral vision, the whole story, maybe you're right. Maybe one or two of them will go. Well, I know it's Man United.
Yeah.
But is there anything else around? So
Glasner's obviously out of contract at the end of the season.
Well, look, it's not exactly a razzmatazz signing if it was Oliver Glasner, but it's a proven manager in Germany and England. There is no doubt he can organise, he can get the best out of. There is no doubt he can do that. Now, is it the sort of fireworks, flair, all that? No, it's not. So I don't know what they want. I wouldn't be against Oliver Glasner getting any sort of job if he wanted to leave Crystal Palace. But as I sit here now, I've got no idea. If you say to me, what way should they go? I don't know. I have no idea. And they don't either. That's the problem. This is the same group of people that came in, things are going to be different. If we go back to Ten Hag, the way that they dealt with Eric Ten Hag, he's going to be sacked. He's won the FA Cup, new contract, then sack him. That itself told you there was no real pathway in the boardroom to what the long game was going to be, and there still is not.
Who would you have, Shaq?
The thing is if you really look at what's needed for this job, it's a really short list. I get Glasson, I get Iraola for the jobs that they've done, but can they handle the media pressure that comes with this Manchester United job? I'm not so sure. You probably see the same thing about Pochettino, kind of given how fractured his relationship with the media is here in the US, and that's US
and
soccer media.
Chelsea, obviously,
and so now you end up with, in my opinion, a short list of one in Thomas Tuchel.
Wow.
And because
once he wins the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. When he wins the World Cup.
when he wins, he might excel. I get that point. I get that point. But again,
that's a difficult sell for Man United, because once they absolutely fall flat on their face in North America, England, that is.
Yeah, that's true. You get knocked out in the quarterfinals by Croatia.
Well, you started by saying clean slate.
Right.
I'm going with my clean slate.
Do you think Tuchel really wants that hassle?
I don't know.
With his experience as a Champions League winner.
And that's the thing, to your point.
You know whose name's on the list again?
Gareth Southgate. Yeah, but that was Ashgate. Was it Ashgate?
Brailsford.
We're one of them.
But someday.
Yes. One of them upstairs.
But to your point,
anymore.
if we're talking clean slate,
the bike guy.
Big Manchester United needs a big manager. Which big manager wants to take on that headache?
Yep.
Given everything that's needed. Squad isn't really that good. You have to replenish. Do you have the money to do it? You're not playing European football. There's a lot to dissuade a big name manager.
Mario, your boy Van Gaal coming back. Mario Melchior as the assistant.
No, don't do it. They gave him 200 million and he didn't do anything with it. So let's just think about something else now.
Who would you have, Mario?
You know, like I heard the guys talking about Ancelotti, but okay, this may be a big shout for me to call. Why it's a big shout is because he just, he's got the Brazilian job, so he's good. But in the sense of like understanding and how to maneuver yourself through a really difficult situation, like how they highlighted, Man United, big club, Jason Wilco, how does he think? Does he want to bring in a certain guy that is going to tell him how it needs to work instead of him dictating how it should work? So I think at Man United, the situation is going to be, are they willing to back the money again and bring a big guy in? Because they need a big guy. Because the shorter ones, the smaller ones, and I want to give them the respect, they're going to take the job because the job is going to come to you. I would have taken it myself if I wanted to be a coach. But when you are one of those smaller guys, you got to deal with that pressure. It's a lot, because it's from day one. You start, you hear the complaints. If it's not the club, it is the guys that played at the club. And you got to be able to handle that. If you can't, please don't go there.
You wouldn't take Unai Emery at Man United?
Would you leave Villa?
No, I would have grave doubts whether he would, and he's already had a big go at Arsenal, which was a bad timing for him, really, off the back of Arsene Wenger. Something we talked about the other day. I mean, if you give Unai Emery that Arsenal squad now that Arteta's working with, I mean, I'm pretty sure they'd win the league with an experienced manager. But if you're looking at managers just in England alone, and I know United will be looking elsewhere, then you talk about people that have done amazing jobs. It's Glasner and it's Unai Emery, amongst one or two others. Now, Eddie Howe has been doing a decent job, but it's been a bit of a difficult sell this season at Newcastle. Eddie Howe, who was linked with the England job at one point. But, a few of these managers may not want to be prized away from the project they are on, for want of a better word. So, it is, you remember when Jurgen Klopp was leaving Liverpool and they had a bit of time to think about it, it's not easy to go out there, to be fair, and find the right person.
Yeah. So in theory, they'll have time here, won't they? If Fletcher...
I think Darren Fletcher is, he's a very level-headed young guy. He is inexperienced. He hasn't got really any management, but experience.
He's older now. Like you say he's young, he's just younger than you. That doesn't make him...
Carry on, Craig, carry on.
Is the wound healed? I honestly think the best thing to do, and I know European football may be an issue and maybe a pressing concern, and I get that, is somebody like Darren Fletcher to stay in there, helped by maybe one or two others, till they can somehow make an informed, correct decision. There's no point going out here in the next 2 weeks and rushing into something else that's going to backfire once. if they get it wrong this time, where's the end game?
Yeah.
I'll say this. Yes, you'll have time if you're hiring interim to the end of the season. You've got to ask the question of Emery. You have to ask the question, and
But would you, if you're Unai Emery, Shaq,
right,
what would
you have to ask the question.
So from a Manchester United perspective, you have to ask the question, right? You've just got to pray.
Right.
And if he gives you an inkling of hope, you throw the
What if
kitchen
you're
sink at
Unai
him.
Emery, Shaq?
Now, if I'm Unai Emery, and it depends what they offer, of course, from a financial perspective and backing him in the long run. Aston Villa have their issues financially. If Manchester United throw the kitchen sink at Unai Emery, kind of give him again.
It's all about the money for you, Shaka.
No, it's all about the money for Unai Emery, Dan.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No.
That's what it is.
Mario, you're saying no.
Yeah, but no. I agree. Emery done a great job, but for me, it's like they cannot sack him and not know what they're gonna do. Come on, how you can sack your manager and you have no plan? So you want to tell me they sacked him and they're sitting now around the table and looking at each other and saying like, hey guys, what is our next move? And no one has anything planned. No, the club is too big not to have a plan. So they have to really start stepping up really quickly and get somebody that is capable to do either what they want, you understand? Because I clearly we can see like the guys that they bring in was some dictation of what they already had in their mind, but they need someone also can bring the club forward because the way they want to play, this club is known for beautiful football, energy. When you come to that stadium, you kind of have fear. Bring a manager that can create that. If you bring a manager that's just a nice guy and just happy to grab the mic and say, hey, I'm at Man United, no, that's not going to work.
Right, Oggy. Crystal ball time. We know Fletcher's in charge for the next 2 games. What happens after that? Who's in charge of the start of next season?
Yeah, well, I think Mario's kind of giving United a bit too much credit for having a plan before they sack a manager. Because what I've been told is that it will be Fletcher for the next. It'll be Fletcher for the next 2 games, and that's when they'll start looking at a plan. He's buying them some time. They don't actually know right now what they want to do. The inkling right now is that they will stick with Fletcher for 2 games, then find an interim coach to help Fletcher along for the next remainder of the season. Now, an interim coach, they've been down this road before with Brian Giggs, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Ralf Rangnick. They're trying to find that figure to get them between now and the end of the season so that they can then make an informed choice in terms of the manager going forward. Now, that's the difficult part. Who do you find between now and the end of the season that's willing to do it for 6 months? It's not going to be Gareth Southgate. It's not going to be Enzo Maresca. It's not going to be anyone that's out of work right now because they're not going to take it for 6 months. But they want to get to the point in the summer where they have a coach, manager, whatever they want to call it, who has the credentials to take Man United forward. Now, I think they spoke to Thomas Tuchel. Would it be the summer that Ten Hag stayed? They were very close to hiring Thomas Tuchel, and Thomas Tuchel eventually decided that it wasn't quite for him. I think there was an issue in terms of I don't think he was overly happy with the structure and the selling point at the time. But I think they've had conversations with Tuchel. They like Tuchel. I think Tuchel's the obvious candidate in the summer because if he wins the World Cup with England, he's got nothing else to do, has he, apart from win the European Cup and Premier League with Man United. So there you go. So I think Tuchel is the obvious candidate. But the problem they've got is getting from here to there successfully because it could go south very quickly if they've got an interim coach and another interim coach next week. So that's the issue, getting from here to the summer in some sort of stability and keeping the ship moving forward so they can get into Europe or maybe get into the Champions League.
But we've talked about right from the start of the show, this is a board who wants to be involved. As Craig said, Tuchel's going to call them out every single match if he doesn't get his way. They're not going to cope with that at all, are they, Mark?
Well, that's the thing that they've got to decide themselves, and they've got to accept that they've got 2 options. They either have a coach that they can control, a malleable coach, a young coach, and they'll keep doing this every 18 months, 2 years. Because, as Mario says, if you can't handle the pressure that comes with managing Man United, if you're too young, too inexperienced, you're not going to work. So they have to accept that you need a guy that's got credentials, experience, personality, Sometimes a prickly personality will make things difficult, a challenging personality, but that is the personality that's most likely to get Man United back to the top. They're going to have to accept that. Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox are going to have to accept that you're going to have to give more authority and, strength to a manager than a guy that's just a coach. Because if it's just a coach...
Leandro Trossard proved to be the perfect antidote to Arsenal's attacking frustrations following Mikel Arteta's candid remarks about Victor Gyökeres. Gyökeres may have struggled to truly impress since his summer arrival at Arsenal, but over the weekend, there was finally a glimpse of what he is capable of. importantly, Trossard showed exactly why he could be the key to unlocking the Swedish striker's full potential during Arsenal's hard-fought 2-1 victory over Wolves at the Emirates Stadium. The 31-year-old winger injected fresh energy into Mikel Arteta's side on Saturday night and helped breathe new life into the Gunners' attack. Shortly after replacing Gabriel Martinelli in the second half, Arsenal found the breakthrough. While Trossard did not directly contribute to either the opening goal or the dramatic stoppage time winner, his influence on the game was undeniable. Trossard took control of proceedings, dictating the tempo and pulling the strings down the left flank. Time and again, he dismantled Wolves' compact defensive setup, releasing Miles Lewis-Skelly into space, picking out Declan Rice on the edge of the box, and crucially, feeding Gyökeres with intelligent, well-timed passes. Operating as a creative hub, the Belgian showcased his playmaking qualities, delivering sharp, purposeful distribution. His introduction completely shifted the momentum of the match, and for the first time in weeks, Arsenal's $64 million striker briefly looked like a genuine threat. Before Trossard's arrival, Gyökeres endured a frustrating and ineffective outing in attack. In fact, the Belgian was the only player to carve out a clear-cut opportunity for the 27-year-old forward, slipping a simple yet incisive ball in behind the Wolves' backline. Gyökeres controlled the pass, beat his defender, and aimed for the far post. Wolves goalkeeper Sam Johnstone was beaten, but the Swedish striker saw his effort agonizingly drift just wide. If Arteta truly wants to get the best out of Gyökeres, then granting Trossard a more prominent role in the starting 11th could be the solution. Speaking to TNT Sports after the win, the Arsenal manager openly addressed the challenges facing his marquee signing. "It's a collaboration between the two," Arteta explained. "He was in some really good positions, but the ball didn't arrive quickly enough, accurately enough, or with the precision a number 9 needs to score." But his commitment and intention were there, and we have to keep pushing. Arteta was equally vocal in defending Gyökeres prior to the match, urging patience with the striker's adaptation to English football. "There was huge expectation because we were signing a proven goal scorer, probably with the best statistics in Europe," Arteta said. "But he's coming into a different league, the most demanding league in the world. What happens if he doesn't score in 5 or 6 games? That was the only question I asked him. How are you going to react if you don't score in 5 or 6 matches? Can you handle that? And what about the next 100 games? That's what people need to see. The sample size is still very small, so leave him alone. Let him do what he does best. Support him, and I'm convinced things will come good." That message from Arteta resonated beyond the Emirates. In the days following the Wolves' victory, the debate around Gyökeres intensified among pundits, supporters, and former players. While some questioned whether Arsenal's record signing is truly suited to the Premier League's pace and physicality, others pointed to the structural issues around him rather than the striker himself. Much of the post-match analysis focused on Arsenal's chance creation and balance in the final third. The Wolves game highlighted a recurring theme this season. Gyökeres often makes the right movements, but the service into dangerous areas has been inconsistent. When Trossard entered the match, that problem briefly disappeared. Arsenal suddenly looked more fluid, more unpredictable, and far better equipped to supply a traditional number 9. Former players speaking on television and radio were quick to note the contrast. With Trossard drifting inside and linking play, Arsenal's attacking shape became more compact, allowing Gyökeres to stay higher up the pitch and occupy central defenders. That, in turn, created space for midfield runners like Rice and Ødegaard to arrive late in the box. It was a glimpse of an attacking formula that Arsenal have rarely sustained this season. The reaction from supporters has been equally divided. While frustration with Gyökeres' goal return remains, there is growing appreciation for his work rate, physical presence, and willingness to press from the front. Many fans now see Trossard as the missing connector, the player who can translate Gyökeres' movement into genuine scoring opportunities. Internally, Arteta faces an important decision. Persisting with a front line that isolates Gyökeres risks damaging the striker's confidence, especially with tougher fixtures on the horizon. At the same time, promoting Trossard to a regular starting role could mean reshuffling wide positions and reducing Martinelli's minutes, a bold call that would not come without consequences. Yet football at the highest level often comes down to chemistry rather than reputation. The Wolves match suggested that Arsenal's most expensive signing may not need drastic changes to his own game, but rather the right supporting cast around him. If Arteta embraces that idea, Gyökeres's slow start could soon be remembered as nothing more than a difficult adjustment period. For now, the pressure remains. Goals will ultimately define Gyökeres's Arsenal career, and patience in North London is never unlimited. But with Trossard offering clarity, creativity, and calm in possession, Arsenal may finally have found the key to unlocking their striker and turning promise into consistent production.